Alright everyone, welcome back to Automotive Anatomy. So today, I want to talk about MSRP. The reason why I started thinking about this was because I was listening to a podcast where the influencer, he's a YouTuber, TikToker, whatever. He mentioned that he had bought a very expensive BMW and that he had paid over MSRP. And he didn't care because he was leveraging it and because he was gonna use it for a business expense and things like that. Well, then it got me thinking. I was like, okay, cool. A lot of people do that. And then I was watching Obsessed Garage, and I was watching one of his old videos because he hasn't really been doing much of wash and talks, as kind of he's the one I mimic these videos from. But I was looking at some of the old school videos that he had, and he had washed a Mustang GT 500, if I'm not mistaken. And I was like, I don't remember him having a GT 500, but let me check out the video. So yeah, I was right. He didn't. He was washing one of his buddy's car, and he did mention that the car was 105,000 dollars, but his friend had paid 10 over MSRP, so the car came out to 115. And so that's the reason why he was washing the car. If you guys know the guy from Obsessed Garage, he's very opinionated. And one of the things that he was mentioning was that he gets hit up a lot. Like, hey, I have an idea. Why don't you wash my car and blah blah blah. And so he's like, no, I'm never gonna wash other people's cars or do the whole paint protection, buff, all that stuff. What he likes, the detailing. And so side note, in the future, when I get my building, I wouldn't mind people dropping off their car and I can just wash them. It would take 2 hours and that's it. I don't know. I wouldn't do anything special. I wouldn't detail them. I just wash a car. But anyways, that's way down the line. And so he mentioned that the car was 115 grand. So it got me thinking. I was like, that's wild. Not to say that the car is not worth it. I think that Mustang has a Coyote engine, whatever that means. I don't know how many horsepower. Very, very fast car, very luxurious. It looks extremely aggressive. But with the new type part that's coming up, I remember when the FK8, there was some people that bought the car 20 grand over MSRP. So my question to you is this: what car would you, and this is open for any car, if it's an EF or an EG for you, what car would, if you could have the means, I guess that's super important, what car would you be open to paying over MSRP? For me, it's kind of hard to decide because I think I'm more on the best bang for the buck. Now I'm trying to get a little bit better at that. I was having this conversation with my buddy Rob. He drives the Red EF. Not Rob from Canada. But I was having this conversation with my buddy Rob, and he was saying, what, everything is worth whatever the person is willing to pay, and obviously that's true. I think we were discussing prices for the EFs, and I was like, dude, I can't justify paying 5 grand for an EF or whatever. And he was like, well, if it's worth it to the person, they're gonna do it. And he said, if I find a clean car that I know like I can't find anywhere else and it's worth 5K or that's how much they're pricing it, I'll buy it. And not to say that he's wrong or right. I'm just saying I don't know what car I would personally pay over MSRP. If funds are not an issue, I don't know. I guess I would consider some type of BMW like M series or Porsche. Again, if funds are not an issue. For instance, when I was car hunting many years back, I told you guys this story. I went to Honda after I had already looked at a couple Evos, and they were just way overpriced for cars that were really used. We found one 2015 Evo, I think that year that I was looking for cars, maybe it was 2017. So it was, not not super old. It wasn't brand new. It was, advertised as new. But I think they wanted like 50 grand, and I was like, I'm not gonna pay 50 grand for a Mitsubishi, even though I really like those cars, but I wasn't gonna pay that much. And so I ended up at the Honda dealership, supposedly to go test drive a Honda Fit. I wanted a manual one. Well, that test drive never came by because as soon as we arrived, there was the FKA, a black one, in a showroom, and just beautiful. Now, they wouldn't let me drive it, not even if I show my license or insurance. They told me, if you want to drive it, we're gonna have to do a credit check. Well, I don't have a problem doing a credit check, but the problem is that if you do that and then you start negotiating the price, well, you already took a hard hit on your credit. But anyways, long story short, I didn't buy the car. I was about to buy that car without even test driving it. If I'm not mistaken, the sticker price for that one was 34. I could be wrong. It was 34. They wanted me to go up 10 grand, so that would have been 44. I said no. They're like, what's the most you want to pay over MSRP? And that's this crazy thing that we weren't even negotiating MSRP because it was such a car that was, such hype. So I said, I'm willing to pay 6 grand. But honestly, I wasn't super stoked about that either way. But I was like, you know what? 6 grand, including the taxes. I wasn't going to pay 6 grand plus 3 grand for taxes. So in essence, I was doing 3 grand over at MSRP. Here in Cali, it's about 3 grand taxes and whatever, plates or whatever the extra charges. Of course, they were talking just over MSRP. They're like, oh, we'll let it go for 8, plus, a couple fees. And I was like, no, man, I can't. I can't justify going over, over 6. And it was late. It was on a Saturday or Sunday. It was, afternoon. And a lot of people always worry about like the car payment. They're like, oh, well, how much will my car payment is? I wasn't trying to negotiate the car payment. I was trying to negotiate the price of the car. Another thing is that I was gonna do it to my credit union. I didn't need their credit. I didn't need them to run my credit to see if I would qualify with them. Now, to my understanding, they're still gonna run my credit. I don't know why. If I already have a pre-approved check from my credit union. But long story short is I just didn't feel right paying even 6 grand. I was I was gonna still negotiate the taxes and stuff. But that was my story about like almost overpaying for that car. I ended up buying a Subaru. I got it for close to MSRP. Obviously the Subarus there are a lot more. And I really like the car, so I wouldn't say that I regret buying the Subaru over the Type R. I've been in some Type Rs. They're fun, they're quick, but I don't know. It's one of those things that I'm so glad I didn't pay that much more, because then I think it would have always been in the back of my head. Now, if there's somebody out there listening who's like, hey dude, I paid X amount way over, was it worth it to you? If you love the car, then I think that's great. Like ultimately, you're driving the car. Nobody cares, and that's something that I've kind of been having that conversation with my wife as we go on walks. Like nobody cares what you spend on things. Ultimately, you're the one who has to pay, and you're the only one who knows your finances and things like that. I think with the shortage of chips or whatever product needed to complete a car, the used market and the new market sales just went up quite a bit, and people were still kind of outbidding each other for even a regular car. So obviously the new cars are going to be way over. You got the Datsun or the Nissan 400Z that's coming up, that I personally really like. And obviously I can't even look at how much the cars are going to be worth, because it says it starts at 34,000, but there's obviously different trims and things like that. And I think that cars is going to be selling for minimum of 5,000 over MSRP. I don't know how limited they are, but I guess under that circumstance I would pay over MSRP. One thing that bothered me And it bothered me for not just myself but for other FKA owners, was that we were under the impression that there was going to be a very limited number of Type Rs, you know, and so that's why people were willing to pay over 20 grand, 15 grand, 10 grand. And then they just started creating a whole bunch of them, and then now there's a whole bunch of them. They're great cars, they're great looking cars, especially with the aftermarket support, but I feel like, man, like it kind of loses its touch after, you know, you create so many of them. But so that would be under one circumstance that I would pay a little bit more for a car that's a little bit more, rare, hard to find, or some specs that, you know, are ideal to me. I know Porsches are, created per spec, so most Porsches, especially the high ends, the RS and the GTs of the world, you have to spec them, right? You can't just go and buy it, and then once they hit the used market, now that's when you kind of stuck with those. In my personal opinion, I don't like the tan interiors or the, you know, some of those interiors that they go with, and so now you're stuck with those. But when you first order the car, you just spec it, and then they'll charge you the Porsche price. We can't do that with the Civic Type Rs. I wonder if there would be a market for that. Probably not. I think people that buy Type Rs are still on a budget, and so they're willing to spend, but not as much as the Porsche guys. But I don't know. I don't know what car I would be okay with paying over market. As of lately, I think it's obvious that cars have gone up in prices, and I have clearly have seen that when it comes to the, you know, Impala world. As you guys know, that I want my 63 Impala, and I used to see them on Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, or Instagram pages that sell cars for about 25,000. 25,000 will get you a decent car, a drivable car, not a pristine car. Hell no, you know, like that doesn't exist. But 25, you know, a beat up car will get you for 20. And obviously, we know that is hype. 63, 64s are more expensive. The 59s are way out of, you know, a lot of people's leagues. But then you got like the 65, you know, that nobody really cares for, you know, as much, and so they go for like 20, and even in very good condition. And so cars are going up in prices that now, like the Regals, are now becoming those, you know, popular cars because the Impalas are just getting out of hand. But they used to be about 25,000. Now, good luck finding a $25,000 one. I mean, if you do, it's somewhere in the middle of the country, so now you have to either pay for import or figure out how you're going to bring it. And so obviously that has to be into consideration when it comes to the full price of the car, right? Obviously here in Cali, cars are very desirable because of the weather conditions. They're great condition for the most part. Except if the car's been by the beach. I have seen some rusted ass cars. Rosie is pretty rusty in some areas. I've double checked. It seems like all the structural parts are good. I've kind of, tapped some of the suspension parts. They seem strong, so I'm not nervous about it. But the car had spent her first 30 plus years. Is it 30-year-old car? Let me see. 22, 23, 24, 25, like a 26-year-old car. So the first 20 plus years by the beach. And so, obviously those climate changes are definitely going to have an impact on the car. But overall, it's still fairly dry car, as we say, a very healthy chassis. And so the cars in the desert, those do great as well, because they get faded paint. But other than that, it's like nothing. There's been no major weather that has gone against it, or the salt or things of that nature. So those cars are going to go up in value a little bit more. So I guess I would pay a little bit more for the MSRP. I think I understand that I am going to be paying more when that day comes, when I buy the Impala. I'm sure you can come across still a good deal, but that good deal, you're going to have to spend money to get that car to presentable, or whatever stage or phase that you want it for yourself, or whatever works for you. That's kind of the point where we're at now, where cars are getting specific cars are getting very expensive. So even though they're not brand new, they'll have like the drift tax for the 240 guys, the BMW guys. Those cars are, man, I see some shells selling for 3,000, and I'm like, man, like, and people buy them, and that's the crazy part, people, I guess some people just have that mentality that if I want it, I'm gonna get it, and they have plans for it, and they're gonna go and execute. I'm not sure if your personality is like that. What is the most you would pay for a car, or over MSRP, or what car right now in the market that old school, that you would personally say, you know what, I'm willing to pay a little bit more if I find a very clean stock looking one. I know the dream for a lot of us is whenever we see an older individual driving the stock car down the street, and you just wish you can pull over and say, hey, are you willing to sell? And then they tell you, yes, I'm willing to sell, and they give you like it's almost like it's not, I guess it is, and it's not malicious, but you're hoping that they don't know what kind of car they have. But I'm sure a lot of people have asked them, and then they just sell it to you for a very cheap price. Like, that's obviously the goal, right? And the dream. Will it happen? I don't know. I don't know if it happens for most people, or some people have their grandma and grandpa who, they've just been sitting on a car you don't even know, and it's in the garage. And, oh yeah, I used to drive this old Nissan, and then you go and it's like a, S13 just hanging out. You're like, are you serious, grandma? Like, you had this, because it was just a commuter car. But unless you don't have those type of stories, and even a beat up EF, EG, BMW, Nissan, you're gonna have to pay a little bit more. And so, what car would that be for you? For me, obviously, be the 63 Impala. I am very well aware that, it's a 63. There's no reason why I should even be considering, a number above 20,000 for a car in 63. It's going to require a lot of work. But that's just kind of how it is. If you want that car because the hype or the culture or popularity, whatever you want to call it, you're just going to have to pay. And so that's that. But the new cars, it's I don't know, man. Maybe I'm just that frugal or cheap. You guys tell me. Obviously, a lot has to do with your financial means. But even then, I feel like, man, if I had like big financial means, I still feel like, wait, why am I overpaying for this, Ferrari? Like, I don't know. Maybe that goes to show you guys I never had money. So you're like, dude, if you have a lot of money, you're not gonna. They're just going to tell you the price. You're going to be like, okay, cool, here's a check, and out you go. I don't know. I don't know if anybody has ever tried to negotiate the price on an exotic car, I'm sure there has to be somebody out there, right, that has the money, but he's like, no, I'm still going to see if I can dock the taxes and all that stuff. But for everyday Joe like you and I, now that the new cars are coming, and to be honest, there's not that many cars that I'm really excited about. I think the 400Z is one of them, like new cars. The Type R, honestly, I don't see the big hype. I think it's cool, it's fast. I like the front end of the FK8 more. The rear, I like the new one more. So maybe if they had like a nice little merge, maybe some of you guys maybe some of you guys should do an FK8 conversion on the new one. But it's not a car that I'm super excited, like, oh my gosh, I let me sell my Accord so I can buy it. I don't know, maybe I've never been like that to be honest with you guys, so maybe it doesn't surprise some of you guys. But for sure, I would not pay over MSRP. I don't know if this is also a personality thing where, like, you want to just be the first one to have it. And so you're like, I don't care. I'm willing to pay for it, whatever cost it is. So regardless, the car's going to get sold. Regardless, people are going to buy it because we all have different financial means and we're all in different phases. And that's okay. That's not a problem. Again, not saying that if you've ever paid or you're planning. Maybe you're sitting there like, I already, putting a deposit for the Tesla truck and I'm going to pay so much for, whatever. That's fine. Like, whatever you want. I just, me personally, I can't see myself paying for a new car that, it's already expensive. To me, anything over 35 grand is expensive. And then they tell you, oh yeah, just because we're going to do, and the reason why I say just because to my understanding that over MSRP sticker price is per dealer. Is not a, Honda, let's say, I'm just going to assume, I don't know. I'm just going to assume Honda sells the dealer the car for, I'm just gonna, again, just throwing numbers, You guys obviously know that I'm a dummy. So it takes, I don't know, Honda 20 grand to make the car. Just an example. Let's say the Type R. And then they sell it to the dealer for, I don't know, 25. So they make 5,000 profit. Well, the dealer now has to sell it for 30 to make $5,000 profit, right? But to my understanding, that's where the transaction from Honda to dealer ends. Therefore, now the dealer has the right to put the MSRP up or not. And so that's where we get the whole sticker price, where people are having to pay over MSRP. And as far as I know, Honda has nothing to do with that. That's up to the dealer. So correct me if I'm wrong. If some of you guys work in the dealership industry, you're like, no, man, like, or you know, I don't know, or maybe Honda's selling those Type R's more price, and so now that dealer has to charge more. Makes sense, right? Or maybe they're just taking, I wouldn't say advantage. I'm gonna say they're doing a smart business move, which is the demand's there, so the supply's not, and so we're gonna hype it up. It's called business, and so I'm okay with that too. I mean, obviously I'm not gonna be the one who's going and buying that car, but I don't know. I don't know what car I would go and pay over MSRP. What car would you? And so that, yeah, like I said, though, that's the conversation I want to have with you guys. As I heard one podcast, watched one video, and I was like, man, that guy paid 10 grand. The car was already 105 grand. But I guess if you really want a car, you're gonna go get, go get it. That happened to me in a less expensive way. I mean, Jackie, I think my budget for my car was 4,000, and they wanted 5,000 for Jackie back in 2010. The dealer obviously was upping the price, but I ended up walking away with her for 4,000, which honestly I still overpaid. But I didn't know better, and at the same time, it's like I guess I really wanted the car, So, but yeah, I mean, I think I overpaid for $1,000, maybe. I don't know. I already forgot how much cars were back then. Now you look back and you're like, yeah, now cars are like 2-3 grand, especially Accords. Well, some of them, they're all clapped out, but back then it was very difficult to find them. But anyways, let me know what you guys think. What car would you actually pay over MSRP? I mean, the new M3s and M4s are pretty nice. I mean, would you go for those? The E30 M3, if they had them brand new again, would you pay for those? I know Rob would, as he had them as a first car. Alright guys, peace out. Thank you guys so much for the love and the support. Catch you guys in the next one.